For years, the disappearance of Brianna Maitland has haunted a small Vermont town. A mystery wrapped in silence, secrets, and shadows. But now, after years of searching, the investigation reaches its critical turning point. The final chapter is here, and the truth is about to be uncovered. A story that dark, it poisons a town. The rumor of what happened to Brianna Maitland, the one whispered in secret, the one too horrifying to repeat in the light of day, hung over Montgomery, Vermont for years. It was a story of violence, of drugs, of a secret buried so deep that the fear of it was enough to keep an entire community silent. The official investigation, faced with a wall of whispers and no physical evidence, eventually slowed to a crawl. The files were moved from a desk to a drawer, then from a drawer to a dusty box in a cold case unit. The press conferences stopped. The search parties were called off. To the system, Brianna Maitland had become a statistic, a name on a list of the missing. But to her family, she was everything, and for them, the search had never stopped. It was just beginning. Bruce Maitland, Brianna's father, refused to let his daughter's memory fade into a cold case file. He was a farmer, a man of the earth, and he understood that some things require patience, hard work, and a faith that is stronger than the seasons. He transformed his grief into a mission. His home became an investigation headquarters. The walls of his office were covered in maps of Vermont with pins marking search areas and red string connecting photos of potential witnesses and persons of interest. He spent his nights on the phone, chasing down leads that the police had long abandoned. He hired private investigators, funded searches, and put up thousands of missing posters with his own hands. His face, a familiar, heartbreaking sight on the back roads of New England. He confronted the men who were rumored to be involved, looking them in the eye, searching for a flicker of guilt, a moment of truth. They denied everything, their faces hard and unreadable. But Bruce never backed down. He told a local reporter in a rare interview, "A father's promise doesn't expire. I will look for her until my last day. That's my job now." Her mother, Kelly, fought in her own way. While Bruce chased the shadows, she kept the light of Brianna's memory alive. She spoke to support groups for families of the missing, sharing stories of her daughter's kindness, her dreams, her poetry. She worked to keep Brianna's name in the news, to remind the world that behind the mystery was a human being, a daughter who was loved and deeply missed. For years, they walked this path together, but separately. Two parents, bound by a shared loss, each finding their own way to endure the unending search. And then, after nearly 2 decades of silence, a breakthrough. In the spring of 2022, the Vermont State Police held a press conference. The case of Brianna Maitland was being re-examined. It wasn't a new witness or a deathbed confession that had sparked this renewed interest. It was science. Forensic technology had evolved in ways that were unimaginable in 2004. DNA testing had become more sensitive, more precise, capable of finding a single strand of hope in a mountain of cold evidence. Investigators announced that they had successfully recovered a DNA sample from an item found inside Brianna's abandoned car. They didn't specify what the item was, but for the first time in 18 years, there was a tangible, scientific lead. The news sent a shockwave through the true crime community, which had kept Brianna's story alive for years through podcasts, blogs, and online forums. Suddenly, every theory, every rumor, every whispered name was being re-examined in the light of this new discovery. The sample was sent to a specialized lab for analysis. The wait for the results was agonizing. For Brianna's parents, it was a fragile, terrifying kind of hope. After so many years of dead ends, could this finally be the answer they had been praying for? While the lab worked, the announcement had another effect. It shook the wall of silence in Montgomery. People who had been too afraid to speak in 2004 began to reconsider. A woman who had attended the rumored party that night came forward. She had always denied being there, but now she admitted she had lied out of fear. She confirmed that Brianna was there. She confirmed there was an argument. She couldn't provide a name, but she described the man Brianna argued with, a description that matched one of the original persons of interest. Another tip came in, this one about the car. A former mechanic claimed that one of the men rumored to be involved had brought a car to his shop a week after Brianna disappeared, asking for unusual repairs to the interior and trunk. At the time, he thought nothing of it. Now he wasn't so sure. The pieces were small, fragmented, but they were starting to form a picture that the police and the public had never seen before. And then the results from the DNA lab came back. It wasn't a direct match to a known criminal in the database. It was something far more specific and, in its own way, far more powerful. The DNA was a familial match. It belonged to a close relative of one of the original persons of interest, the local drug dealer whose name had been whispered in fear for nearly 2 decades. It wasn't enough to make an arrest, but it was enough to shatter the cold case wide open. For the first time, the whispers had a scientific echo. The rumors had a forensic anchor. The investigation is no longer cold. It is active and it is focused. The search for Brianna Maitland is no longer just a memory. It is a hunt. The case remains unsolved. There is no final chapter, no neat conclusion. There is only the unending search. But now the search is different. It is no longer fueled by just the love of a heartbroken family, but by the power of science and the courage of those who finally chose to speak. The abandoned car still sits in an evidence lot, a silent monument to a life interrupted. But it is no longer just a symbol of a mystery. It is a promise that the truth, no matter how long it is buried, will always leave a trace. This story doesn't have an ending yet. It lives on in the hearts of a family that refuses to give up, and in the work of investigators who are closer than ever to finding the truth. The search for Brianna is a reminder that hope is not a feeling, it is an action. It is the posters that are still being hung, the phone calls that are still being made, and the stories that are still being told. If you believe that every missing person deserves to be found, share this story. Keep Brianna's name alive. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Our work here is to unseal the stories that have been silenced. Subscribe and join us as we continue to search for the truth, for Brianna, and for all the others who are still waiting to come home.